Welcome back to those of you who were on the call last week, and hello to new listeners today. It's a very cold, dark morning in Sydney. For most of you, it's probably afternoon where you are. And for those of you who weren't on the call last week, I recommend you download the first webcast, as there are probably some things in there that I won't cover today, but which are important to developing your thought leadership point of view. This is the second and last of my webcasts in the series, and next week my co-author and co-founder of Leading Thought, Dr. Liz Alexander, will take you on a journey of storytelling. And I literally can't stress enough how important the art of storytelling is, whether it's for developing your thought leadership or any-day content, everyday content for that matter. So as I go through the presentation today, if you think of a question or you don't agree with me on certain things, or you're not sure about something, please use the question tool, as Patrick said, the Ask Question button directly below the slides, and I'll attempt to answer them as best I can at the end of the webcast. I've been consulting to businesses large and small for 24 years across the geographies of South Africa, the UK, and Australia, which is where I live now with my family. Selfishly, this slide is my section of a full infographic which gives a bit of detail on Dr. Liz Alexander and myself on our website, leadingthought.us.com. But you'll even see in the bottom left-hand corner that both our dogs happen by chance to be called Buffy. But enough of our dogs and on to the serious stuff. The great thing about the consulting work I've done across these three continents is that it's enabled me to witness firsthand the power of thought leadership done properly. And I've literally explored this topic in great depth. I've written books on it, blogs, ebooks, and I've consulted companies, large and small, as well as individuals, about their thought leadership and how to position themselves as thought leaders. But before I share some of those insights with you, I want to say a big thank you to the guys at Infinite Media, an on-stream media company. There's what they do, and I'm not going to run through that. But seriously, if you guys, anybody on the call is thinking of or using any of those services, I really can't recommend them more highly. Besides the obviously great technology, these people are just great to deal with. And I want to say cheers, guys, and thanks for your awesome support. It's just been seamless. It's been great. So exactly what am I going to cover today? By the end of the session, you will have a very clear picture of how to design an effective thought leadership campaign, how to take it to market, how best to leverage, or I like to say sweat your content, how to create eminence for yourself or your brand and your field of expertise, and how to measure and evaluate its success. And not only will I give you the steps and tips on how to get there, but I'll also share some compelling case study-driven evidence as to why thought leadership is the ultimate brand differentiator. And I'd like to stress again that Liz and I are very approachable. If you want to have a chat, if you want to contact us, you can email us, you can contact us via LinkedIn, you can tweet us, you can Skype us, you can call us. We really are both very passionate about this topic and very happy to chat to anybody who has a similar love for thought leadership, or for that matter just wants to find out more. Now, last week I gave you a long definition of thought leadership, and this week I want to give you a shorter, more compact one that Liz and I have come up with for our new Leading Thought website. And the point is here, you can pick any definition you want, and believe me, there are plenty out there. But the essence of thought leadership is about four key things. The first is it's about the what you deliver. There have to be new insights or new ways of doing things, new methodologies, new approaches, as prefaced by that word pioneering in our definition. It's also the second thing, it's all about the who. In other words, it has to be client-centric and not about you, your products, or your services. The third thing is that underpinning all of that is the why and the how. So in other words, why are you doing it, and how does it relate to your vision and mission as a company? And finally, the fourth thing that really goes to the essence of thought leadership is it absolutely should do one of three things. It should either generate or nurture leads, It should build your reputation as an expert and underpin the sale. So those three things are key. And on that note, I will give you later some very compelling evidence on three thought leadership campaigns and how they have impacted the sales. But before I move on, I want to go to the first poll. I'm going to stay on that slide, and let's go to the poll, and I'm going to pose a question. I'm literally going to give you 30 to 40 seconds to answer that question and see what you come up with. So off you go. Time for you guys to do a bit of work. Okay, so hopefully you've all had a read through those and you've clicked on the answer that you think suits you. Let's stop that and let's have a look at the results. Okay, interesting. So let's move on to the next slide, and we'll come back later to the poll as well. I'd like to spend a little time on this statement from Forrest. It's from a Forrest report, and hopefully most of you have heard of Forrest, a very well-known research company. It's titled "Nurture Thought Leadership to Nurture Your Brand." And in this regard, I want to make something quite clear. I don't buy the viewpoint that curating or aggregating content can make you a thought leader. The bottom line is this: if you're not adding some value or some new insights to the content you're curating, then all you're doing is really amalgamating other people's thoughts. And how on earth is that thought leadership? But how exactly do you go about deciding where you want to focus your thought leadership efforts? And last time I talked about having the right environment in which to operate. But this week I want to go into the actual specifics. And I'm assuming you want to make a start on this thought leadership journey, or you may well have an existing thought leadership platform or point of view, and you may be looking to make it more robust or change it up a bit, or have another area of business where you think there's an opportunity to develop a thought leadership program. Well, based on our combined 50-plus years experience in business, Liz and I have designed and outlined the following. And this model, it's a 5-step model. It's to not only help you identify your thought leadership position, but it's also how to plan it, how to take it to market, and how to measure it. And I'll go into each step in a bit more detail, because this really is your plan for evolving and getting your thought leadership out to market. Looking at understanding the challenge, now there are a number of ways to understand the challenge, but they all hinge around asking the right questions and doing the research. Why do I say that? Because you need to identify an area you can own. I like to call it your white space. And in order to do that, there are a number of ways you can do this, but you need to choose one that works for you. So I'm going to share with you a couple of ideas. The first is to use something like our thought leadership heat map. Look, it doesn't look particularly impressive on the slide. I get it. But what you don't know is behind that slide, this is what has happened. So this is actually a practical example. We workshopped with senior people in a tax firm, and it included management. We had the senior partners and management of this tax firm, and during the workshop, we go through a few aspects of thought leadership they should be taking to their thinking, and we then explore the issues that most matter to their clients. So we look at trends impacting them and their clients. We go mining for possible pockets of intellectual property that they may have, and then we start fleshing out areas they think they can own. The second step is we leave the workshop, but we then go off and we conduct around 30 hours of online desktop research, during which we explore each of those topic areas that they've identified that they think they could own. And that includes a broad search across a number of related search engine optimization terms for that topic. And so what we end up with, and we narrow it, we sort of look at global industry competitors. We can even narrow it further to country and even city-specific competitors. And that gives us a wonderful virtual thought leadership heat map. And so we draft that into a sort of compact research report with links to the thought leadership material we found in those areas. And the sort of final outcome is this funny old heat map that you see there. So what you're seeing is really the ultimate distillation of hours of work, which gives that brand or that business or that practice area a very clear view on the noisy areas. So noisy means, lots of people talking a lot about that particular topic in that area. That's the high area, and then the low. So where there's the huge white space, in other words, where people aren't saying a lot, and that's where the opportunity lies. You really don't want to go into an area that's crowded, because then you're fighting with everyone else. An overcrowded space is not a great space for your thought leadership campaign. You really will have problems getting the cut through and the traction that you desire. So, for example, I'll give you an example. Imagine a beauty product trying to emulate the Dove campaign for Real Beauty, or someone trying to muscle in on IBM's Smarter Planet campaign. At best, they're going to be labeled a follower. At worst, a plagiarist or a try-hard. But you also don't want to find an area, or you don't want to fall into the trap of finding an area that is so niched that only a few of your clients or potential market is interested in it. The second thing you could use, is I'm just giving you options here, and you can do these on your own. You don't need us for it. The second thing you can do is you could use the 7-step process called START IP. Now, this process I came up with in my first book, Brand Stand, 7 Steps to Thought Leadership, and it basically revolves around the following. And I'll run through each one in a little bit more detail. Scan effectively means scanning the media and the web for content in the space that you want to own. Track essentially means look at your competitors to ensure that you're not entering an already busy thought leadership space. So, for example, if you're a law firm or an accounting firm, have a look at your competitors' websites. And if they're publishing great thought leadership material and reports on a particular area, then avoid that area. It's no point taking them on head-on, because they've already gained traction. And if they've been doing it for 3-4 years, you really are going to battle to gain any traction in that space. Thirdly, analyze your vision. In other words, the true north of your company, to ensure that your thought leadership point of view is not at odds with your existing culture where the business is going. So too often what we see is the marketing department gets gung-ho about a particular thought leadership point of view, and they go a long way down the track, and then the executive team turns around and says, hang on, that's totally at odds with our vision and our mission and where we want to go and the positioning of this firm. You need to have a rethink. Well, what a waste of time and effort. I'm just going to have a quick sip of water, guys. The fourth point is review. So review, in every company that we've consulted to, there are sometimes hidden, sometimes they're pretty overt, and they're existing intellectual property pockets, as we call them, or IP. If you've got existing pockets of IP, explore whether those could form the platform for your thought leadership point of view. And critically there, is it client-centric? So you may have you may have an expert on something and he or she is brilliant, but are your clients really interested in that? And you need to understand that. So you need to do a bit of background and see if there's an appetite from your clients in that area. Fifthly, trends. This is a wonderful area, and the media are hungry for trends. They love future-looking stuff, and so if you're out there to get media coverage and you're sort of scoping some great trends in your industry, I can guarantee you're going to drive some good media coverage. The other thing is clients love trends, because it's saying that you can see what's coming down the track and it helps them make business decisions. So identify trends that are going to impact your sector or your clients, and explore whether you can do some research on that and deliver a thought leadership point of view on that. Second last one, identify the thought leadership champions. You need somebody. You need somebody who's going to stand up and be your spokesperson. You need to include them in the planning and the execution phases. You need to coach them appropriately to deliver your thought leadership material. They need to understand what the key messages are. And maybe it's a team. Maybe it's 2 or 3 people. I know some organizations that actually use their thought leadership to coach their whole sales team. So their sales team go out and have conversations with their clients that their competitors can never have because they haven't done the research. They don't have that in-depth knowledge around that particular thought leadership point of view. And the sales guys, they love it because they're having conversations with their clients that matter to their clients, and they're not necessarily hard selling. And then finally, this one is you can and you don't need to, but you may want to set up an external body of experts who act as a sort of unbiased filter and a sounding board for your thought leadership approach. And they could sort of, you could meet with them every now and then and run by them what it is that you're doing and see whether they think there's an appetite for that and whether it's hitting the right mark. So there you go. There's another way of how you go about identifying where you start with your thought leadership platform. So the final idea that I have for you is to read our book at Thought Leadership Tweet. Now, while I'm aware that this may sound a little bit like an overt plug for the book, there is a very good reason I'm suggesting this, and that is because Liz and I spent a lot of time thinking very deeply about the 140 tweets we pose in this book. They're sort of posed as questions, and the specific purpose of them is helping clients, firms, individuals think through and question and better prepare your thought leadership position and campaign. It really does drive you down the path and ask you the right questions so that you can arrive at the place you want to arrive at. Now, I'll give you just 3 examples of the type of tweets that we have in the book. The first one is, have you clearly defined what thought leadership means to your organization and what you want to achieve from it? Secondly, has sufficient budget and resources been allocated for this thought leadership campaign, and does that include plenty of time to think? Thirdly, does your organization have a culture of listening, and what mechanisms have you put in place to truly listen to your market's needs? So there's just an example of a smattering of some of the questions we ask, but it allows you to think quite deeply about why you're doing this, how you're doing it, and then helps look, and it's also filled with a couple of instant tips if you want to go that route. So there are 3 examples I've given you of how you can arrive at your thought leadership position. But I do want to stress that last tweet that I mentioned about listening. I've mentioned a number of times today that thought leadership has to be client-centric. And when it comes to listening to your clients, here are a few more questions you may want to be asking. I'm going to pose 4 to you. What is it that keeps your clients awake at night? And how can you use this to inform your point of view? Secondly, thought leaders ask why a lot more than what or how. Are you asking your clients the right questions from the start? Thirdly, be wary of moving into solution mode too quickly. Have you spent enough time asking the right questions? That could be of your own team. It could be of the guys at the coalface, the sales guys. It could be of your clients. Fourthly, do you know what the 3 biggest trends are that will impact your client's business over the next year or 2? And then lastly, and this is critical, by the way, because when you produce your content that you deliver to your clients or to the market, do you know how they like to consume that content? Do they read magazines? Do they go online? Do they like one-on-one? Do they like coming to breakfast presentations at your place of work? So you can see, guys, from these questions that it's really key that you ask these questions up front to really interrogate and arrive at a far more robust thought leadership point of view and platform than you ordinarily would. And the questioning methodology is the way to do that. Now, if you've taken these first steps with the right, with sufficient rigor, you should be able to find the space you can truly own, and that will set you apart from the crowd. And then you move into the second stage, which is developing your thought leadership strategy. Now, the guy on your slide there, I don't know if any of you have heard of Scott Ginsberg. He's the name tag guy, okay? Scott is a writer, speaker, he's a consultant, he's a publisher, he's also an award-winning blogger and a brand strategist. He's written about 25 books on approachability, identity, branding, and commitment. He wears a name tag 24/7. He reckons even to bed. The point is, he has created true differentiation for himself and set himself apart from everyone else in this space. So when it comes to defining a thought leadership position for your business, ask yourself why are you doing it and what you want to achieve from it. There are two things you need, and guys like Scott and firms who do this well do these two things very well. They set very clear objectives up front, and these need to be discussed with the team, and they need to be defined and written down. And aligned with that should be a set of clearly defined key performance indicators, or KPIs as some people like to use the term, with very specific outcomes assigned to people. If it's not measured, it's not going to get done. So write out your plan. It doesn't have to be pages and pages, but you'll need a clear outline of your business objectives and what success looks like to you. So a great example of this would be Booz & Co. They're a management consultancy. They have something called the Global Innovation 1000 Report, and they have three simple measurable objectives. The first one is media coverage. The second one is raise the profile of their consulting abilities in the innovation space. And the third one is secure speaking engagements. Now, how good is that? Three very simple, very measurable objectives. And, every year they've been doing this for 7 years. They measure it, they add it up, they look at it, how do we improve next year? And it works really well for them. And I've chatted to them about their campaign, and it sounds like it's bringing them great business. But now you're moving to the fun part. Now comes the part where you're starting to produce the content, creating and leveraging your story, and this will form the backbone of your campaign. You need to design it, by the way, so it's got multiple uses. You may have mini reports, you may have it on the web, you may have a YouTube channel, you may have a tweet campaign, I don't know, it's up to you. It depends on what your clients are reading and following. But you should be exploring every opportunity to leverage your content as widely as possible. But I would like to make this point here that an often overlooked element of thought leadership is your own people. The people you work with, the people in your organization. Your employees are your best advocates. And in fact, I've seen thought leadership done well become an incredible rallying cry for everyone in that organization. And one of the most potent results is that it will give your own people something of great value to talk about without having to sell their service or product. The point is that it's really important at this stage of your process not to focus solely on the external market. Ernst & Young, for example, in Sydney, spend months before launching their thought leadership coaching their employees on how to use the content. After all, they're the ones who are going to be the ambassadors for your thought leadership material. And too often what we've seen with companies is they get all excited about the packaging of the content and putting it out there, and they don't bring their own people along with it and get them involved. And that's a classic error. Now, communicating your point of view is key, and what I've got up there is what I call my sort of pond ripple diagram. And the typical approach for most companies is to do what's called the norm. So you'll see the first two concentric arrows is thought leader's point of view and then the norm. And then maybe they do a little bit of leverage one. But it's not good enough. You need to be thinking a little bit more strategically about where your audience hangs out, what they read, and how they consume their content, so you can layer your content across multiple audience touch points. But please make sure it's relevant. For example, do you know whether your audience searches and consumes content online? And if the answer is yes, then ensure you package your content for search. If you want to own the space, you need to be on the front page of Google. The steps to great search engine optimization are a topic all on their own, and I'm not going to cover it here, but what I do know from personal experience is that you will do well just to keep putting up excellent, regularly updated and niched or concentrated content to set you on a path to achieve that. Look, unfortunately, it's a whole lot more sophisticated search engine optimization than that. So I'd suggest that during your planning stages, you probably incorporate the expertise of someone who's across how best to optimize your content for search. Now, what I'd like to do at this point is go to our second poll. And, now that we're on the topic of social media, and I'll give you 30 seconds to answer that poll. It's our second and final poll question. So if you wouldn't mind having a read-through of that, and then we'll have a look at the results. Okay, let's take a look at what you guys said. Well, that's interesting. 100% of you said, well, we have a website and try to remember to update with search content from time to time. That is interesting. Okay, let's move on to the next slide, and we'll go from there. The last section of that diagram was measure, evaluate, and recalibrate what it is you're doing. Great thought leadership campaigns are not tick box exercises. I've seen too many times, given the everyday pressures of people's jobs and instances where the team or the person responsible for the project cannot wait to sign it off and move on to the next thing. And great short thought leadership doesn't actually work this way. You need to revisit your business objectives to make sure that these are being met, and if not, why not, and what can be done about it. Thought leadership's not a short-term campaign. The best campaigns out there run for years, and they're fine-tuned along the way. So we recommend sitting down with your management team, your marketing, your sales team, the PR team, and talk to them about where it could improve for next time. And in addition, and very importantly, research your clients about whether it's hitting the right spot. There's no reason why you can't go back to them and ask them what they thought of it, where it could improve, etc. And then if you need to, change your strategy and try again. And if it needs radical changes, don't be afraid to make them. You'll only find out what works and what doesn't by being brave. And by the way, thought leaders by nature are brave. I've yet to meet a thought leader who's timid in their approach. Because by the nature of it, you're actually saying stuff out there that creates debate or frames debate or says something different. Now, I did say to you I'd provide some compelling evidence, business evidence, that thought leadership works. And I've also said that my view of thought leadership is heavily commercial. It's my strong view that at best your thought leadership should be nurturing or generating leads to underpin the sale. At worst, strategically used to create a reputational shield or to boost brand reputation. So here's some evidence, some hard-nosed commercial evidence. IBM's Smarter Planet thought leadership campaign helped increase their brand value by 20% to the tune of $11.3 billion. GE's Eco-Imagination campaign earned them $85 billion in additional revenues from Eco-Imagination products over 5 years. They reckon their Eco-Imagination products are expected to grow 2 times faster than the rest of the company. Dove's campaign for Real Beauty boosted sales in the US by 600% within 2 months of its launch, and in Europe by 700% after 6 months. And sales globally have grown by more than $1.5 billion in revenue 5 years after the campaign's launch. But besides the financial benefits, there are a whole heap of other very real benefits, which I'll come to in a couple of slides. But first, some more case studies. And Liz and I recently interviewed 4 companies as well as an individual, and no prize for guessing who the individual is there, head shop of Jeffrey Bullers, a social media expert. We interviewed them about how they're positioning themselves as thought leaders. They form part of an 8-part audio series we would put up on our website, but each case study is very different, and they deliver some fascinating insights. For example, Egremont partnered with a key media partner and an influencer in their space to take their head office of the future thought leadership campaign direct to their market. And in the process, they helped cement their brand as the experts on organizational design. iCrossing has done an amazing job of coaching all their employees to stop thinking like marketers and act and think more like publishers. And it's had an incredible impact on their content. We also highlight how a technical engineering service firm like Sinclair Knight Mertz, or SKM as they like to be called, has used thought leadership and worked with their people to ensure their clients really do understand that their people are truly different and have very different expert views around engineering issues. And then SICSR, a bit of a mouthful, is a leading Indian institute of higher education, and we look at the difference. They're looking at innovation and thought leadership. We'll explore that and how they use the 3 legs of their thought leadership stool, which is culture, strategy, and people. And then Jeffrey Bullers, who I mentioned earlier, he's earned his authority in the social media space. He's gathered over 160,000 Twitter followers and over 4 million visitors to his blog in just 4 years. So the great thing about these case studies is that they are each so different, and they offer some fascinating insights into what works, and more importantly, how to shortcut the dead ends or how you can avoid the pitfalls. And you know, if you do want to delve further into that, it is on our website as an audio series. But I've already shared with you the financial benefits across those 3 case studies I gave you of GE, IBM, and Dove. And there were some really potent financial benefits that some brands have accrued as a result of their thought leadership. But thought leadership comes with a host of other benefits, as I said there, and the benefits graph on this slide, which is a section of a larger thought leadership infographic, which appears on our site. There we've only listed 4 benefits, but I literally have, over the years, developed a table of 60-plus, 70-plus benefits that companies accrue or individuals accrue from a thought leadership platform. And these aren't just made up. These are from chatting to people who do this stuff really well. And so what you're seeing there is just 4 of them, and each are really important. But ultimately, that last one, enabling more powerful conversations between sales and your clients and your prospects, that's one of the most potent results of thought leadership, is that those conversations you have with your clients are so much richer than the ones you previously had. The sales guys or the marketing guys or the business development guys or even the partners in your firm are able to have discussions with your clients around your thought leadership point of view. That means they don't have to hard sell. They don't have to sell their product or service. That just comes naturally. It just forms part of this discussion that you're having. And that's one of the major benefits of thought leadership. So as we start winding up for today, I want to share with you a distillation of the many conversations and interviews I've had with brands who are doing this well over the 7 years that I've spent deep diving on the topic of thought leadership. And I've literally boiled it down to 4 key things. And this is really what people who are doing it well have told me, and I've taken those things and I've boiled it down to these 4 things. What they're doing well is they're looking at their packaging very creatively. So I'll give you an example. I was chatting to an accounting firm the other day, and our accounting firms, you think, boring, dull. Well, far from it. This accounting firm had done what a lot of thought leadership programs do. They'd produced a white paper. They'd done the research. They employed a research company. They'd done some very in-depth research around the area of risk, boardroom risk. And most people, what would most people do, they produce the report, they push it out, they may have a client breakfast or a lunch, they may do a few media interviews, and that's pretty basic. That's what you should be doing at a minimum. What these guys did was they tied up with one of the leading news magazines in that sector. They did a series of webinars. They then did a series of YouTube interviews, but not with themselves, but with their partners, interviewing people who are experts across that particular area. Very well-known chairmen of boards and the experiences they had had. They interviewed regulators. So they put together this wonderful array of deep thinking and deep discussions around the area of boardroom risk. And they put that up on YouTube. They're then able to drive, and depending on the conversations they had with various clients or prospects, they were then able to cut various aspects of those interviews based on the specific conversations it had with that client. So if I'd been having a conversation with John about a particular element of boardroom risk, I could then become very targeted in what I sent him. I wouldn't send him the whole package. I'd say, John, have a look at page 5 on this report, and if you go to this YouTube site and you view YouTube video number 3, that discussion we're having with the regulator is very pertinent to the conversation we had the other day. So it became a very personalized approach, and that's point 3 there that I'll come to. So that's the creative packaging that they're looking at. And the best also bundling their content. They're looking at ways to really bundle up content that makes it exciting for their clients. And by that I mean, if you've got a report, can you put it up on SlideShare? Can you send a PowerPoint preso? Can you boil it down into 5 or 6 key, an executive summary? Can you have a one-on-one meeting where you present that in a great deck? Can you send a one-pager, or can you do an infographic, a visual interpretation of your results that you send to your clients? So find ways to bundle your content in an exciting visual, and by the way, I touched on visual here. Visual medium is grossly underused, and it's something that is growing exponentially across every visual platform that you get on social media. The growth in places like Instagram, Pinterest, SlideShare, Vine is explosive. And if you're not taking advantage of interpreting your data or your thought leadership material visually, then you're missing a trick. And so look at how you bundle your content using visual medium. I touched on the third bullet point about personalizing content, where I used the example of John and the conversation you'd have with him, what you'd send him as a result. But what is critical is if you can link that to a great customer relationship management tool. There are many out there. You need to find one that works for you. If you're a small firm or an individual and you've only got a handful of clients, that's great. That's easy. You can put it on an Excel spreadsheet. But if you're a large organization, and many have got good CRM tools in place, as the marketing guy or as the PR person or as the exec in charge of, CMO in charge of this stuff, you should be looking at how you liaise with your CRM managers and how you use that data to inform your thought leadership, number one, but number two, how you use that client data to better manage how you personalize your thought leadership content, and keep track and a record of what you're doing and with whom. And then finally, what they're doing really well is smart online cataloging. And by that I mean, when I go onto your website to look for information about a particular topic, I find you on Google, I go onto your website, have you indexed it easily for me to follow and easily for me to find? If you look at a large law firm, for example, and you look at the amount of content they have on their websites, it's astronomical how much content they have. Some do it really well. Some index it exceptionally well. Others don't. So have a look at your website. Have a look at how you're cataloging your information. And is your thought leadership obviously easy to find? Or is it hidden beneath layers and layers, and I have to click through layers and layers to actually find it? If it is, you're doing yourself a disservice. So really look at that very carefully as well. So a final note on the long-term nature of thought leadership. And there's a wonderful, I can never find out who actually came up with that expression, overnight success takes about 15 years. But, for example, when DuPont started talking about and pinning their colors to the sustainability mast 25 years ago, what do you think the reaction was? Yes, you'd be right. DuPont, sustainability, you've got to be kidding. Now, actually, it's written into their very vision, mission, and values, and it's part of who they are. The doyens of thought leaders are the management consultancies. And who of us hasn't read a McKinsey newsletter or one of their insightful thought leadership papers? And these guys, let alone McKinsey, there are a whole heap of management consultancies out there who are literally masters of this stuff. They've been churning this stuff out for over 10, 15, 20, 10 years. And of all the cases I've mentioned today, the youngest thought leadership kid on the block, as I'd like to call it, has only been doing it for 4 years. So still that's fairly long-term. So if you truly want it to work, it has to be long-term. And therefore, by its very nature, it's going to have to become part of the culture of your organization. Those companies doing it well don't view it as a campaign or a nice-to-have or a marketing tactic or a gimmick. Rather, it's the way they do business. It's an integral part of their business strategy. It's in their DNA. It's who they are, and it's owned by the executives. Much like you may find a sales culture or cultural research or whatever it is in an organization. And that's where thought leadership belongs. And if you manage to achieve this, we have no doubt you'll reap the rewards, and richly so over the years. But stick with it and go long term. So just another note about Infinite, really great guys. If you ever want to use them for audio conferencing webinars, give them a call. They do this stuff all the time. They are experts on this. So to wrap up, it's been great chatting to you today. I hope you've got something out of it. I know it's a lot to cover. As I said to you, Liz and I are very approachable, very happy to chat to you. And The next one, which will take place in a little while, I think it's on the 8th of August, is going to be run by Dr. Liz Alexander. She's the co-founder of Leading Thought, and she'll cover the art of storytelling and how you make your content so compelling that people will click on it, read it, and share it. There's a ton of material on thought leadership on my blog at thoughtleadershipstrategy.net, and we're starting a new blog at Leading Thought, so watch that space as well. So feel free to visit us, be in touch, and I'll now spend a bit of time answering your questions. Hopefully you've sent a few questions through. If not, let's take a look. Yeah, we do. We have a few. So let's start with, there are quite a lot of questions. I'll try and get through some of them. I may not get through all of them. How do you make sure you keep a client-centric focus? One word, research and being in touch with your clients. So research your clients, speak to your clients. If you've got a sales team who are dealing with clients all the time, go and speak to them. Find out what the issues of the day are. What's bugging your clients most? What do they keep asking the sales guy? What comes up all time and time and time again? Without researching your clients, you're never going to really know what's going on in their minds. So sticking close to your clients is really important. Another question, when doing research, how do you decide what areas to focus on for your thought leadership? Well, hopefully the thought leadership heat map and the way you outline what it is you want to focus on will have given you a very specific area of focus, and then you can dive in and deep dive on that. You want to go fairly narrow, but you want to go deep when you're deciding your point of view. And as I said, it has to be client-centric. Are there any tools? Another question, are there any tools you recommend for when researching your content? Look, there are a lot of free search tools online that you can use. There are a lot of good paid search tools like Meltwater, Radian 6, etc. But you literally should have no problem. You can just do a search on free search tools, and it really is up to you as to how far and how deep and what sort of budget and what resource you're going to put to this as to how you go about that. When it comes to researching the actual content that you're going to deliver to your clients that makes up your thought leadership, I'd recommend that you need to employ either a research expert or, and I've seen this work very well, in fact we've done this with a number of our clients, you tie up with an academic institution, or you tie up with the Chamber of Commerce and Industry, or you tie up with the association that covers your sector, and you do joint research with them, and you launch it jointly with them. That's often a great way of gaining third-party credibility, and also aligning yourselves with other stakeholders, and by the way, getting access to their database, which is really helpful. How do you examine whether your content pocket is a good fit for your thought leadership campaign? Well, as I said, research. If it's not what your clients are interested in, if it's not an issue or a challenge your client is facing, don't do it. It's just going to fall on deaf ears. Can you provide an example of the right question to ask to understand your clients? Well, if there was one question that would do that, please share it with me, because I've yet to find it. But Simon Sinek, I don't know if any of you have heard of him, it's S-I-N-E-K. Simon Sinek wrote a book, and I can't remember the title, but it's about asking the question why. And there's a whole methodology about asking the question why 5 times. So you're sitting with a client, and they have an issue. You say, why is it an issue? And they answer, why again? And apparently, if you ask why 5 times, you'll unpeel the onion as to say and find out what the real reasons are. So why is probably one of the best questions to ask when you're chatting to your clients, and why again. Once objectives, here's another question. Once objectives are set, what KPIs are generally good to examine? Those KPIs you need to have broad business KPIs and keep them brief, maybe 2 or 3. I used the Booz & Co example. Their KPIs were media coverage, speaking engagement, and profiling their expertise in the innovation space. Very simple, very easy to measure. So my advice to you around objectives, keep them simple. you have to measure them. If they're complex, they become very difficult to measure, and thought leadership sort of gets a little bit all over the place. Then what you should be doing is then transferring that into individual KPIs. So members of the team, how are they being KPI'd on those broad business KPIs? Because without that, people are going to say, well, I'll just go back to my normal day job and, marketing can run that campaign. Well, that's never going to work. Another question, how do you know when to switch from leverage 1 to leverage 2? That's on that concentric circle diagram, if you remember, where most people do the norm, just a few things. Well, once again, it's client-driven. If your clients are on social media, or your prospective clients or your consumers on social media, there's no reason why you can't leverage it as widely as possible across everything. What you want effectively is you want a mix of tactics around your content, so that it's not just one-dimensional, and it's not just, we've done our launch, we've done our press release, we've sent out the report to all our clients on our database, tick the box, thank you very much, move on. That is the worst possible outcome you can look at, and it's what most people do, unfortunately. That is definitely not sweating your content. It's definitely not leveraging it the way it should be. You should be sitting down with your sales guys, your marketing guys, your PR guys, your execs, and saying, right, we've got this great piece of research, and this should be done beforehand, by the way. How are we going to use it? What works for you guys? What's worked in the past? What have you seen your competitors do that your clients loved? And then how do you then adapt it for that? So there's no end to this stuff. You really need to be on the ball and looking at ways to leverage that content. And I think that about covers all of it. I'm just having a look through to see if anybody's asked anything else. When tweeting, what do you use to examine what is being said in regards to your content? There's some wonderful tweet, Hootsuite and TweetDeck and other tools like Radiant 6 and Meltwater that actually will give you the feeds of every tweet that mentions your brand or search terms that you want to search around your brand. And so it's actually very easy. If you use those tools, you can actually literally have every tweet that mentions your brand or your thought leadership campaign coming through to you, and then and engage with those people and answer them if you want to. So guys, there we have it. I don't think there are any more questions that have come through. Thanks for asking those questions, and we'll leave it there for the day. And good luck. Go forth and multiply that thought leadership campaign. Thank you.